The second annual African Tourism Leadership Forum kicks off in Durban tomorrow. The three-day event brings together leaders of government and business from across the continent. Now, delegates are expected to discuss how to unlock economic growth and job creation in the sector. And for more, I'm joined from our Durban studios by the host of the event, the CEO of Africa Tourism Partners, Kwakye Donkor. Very good evening to you, Mr. Donkor. Thank you so much for joining us. Are you all set for tomorrow's event? What are some of the items on the agenda?
Good evening. Yeah, we are really set for the agenda. What's happening is tomorrow we are basically interacting with the youth. We got what we call the Africa Youth in Tourism Innovation Summit. We all know that the youth are our future, and the idea is to make sure we are able to coach and mentor and guide them on how to develop the tourism industry across the continent, and also come up with innovative ideas on how best we can keep growing and developing the sector for the rest of Africa.
So who are some of the big names attending this event?
The big names, obviously, we have like the Ghana Tourism Minister. We have a message from the United Nations World Tourism Organization, a special message of support from him in his vision for Africa. We got the CEOs of a lot of the African countries. I can say comfortably we got about CEOs from at least about 15 to 20 countries in Africa responsible for tourism development and tourism authorities. We got people from the private sector, from organizations like the World Travel Tourism Council, and a couple of number of people from airline and hotels and other sectors of the industry.
Well, so much has been said about the contribution of the tourism sector to the country's GDP. Just how crucial is it? How crucial is this sector to economic growth?
I personally believe that tourism is one of the industries or the sectors that touches every sector of the economy. If you look at tourism, you can touch construction, you can touch development, you can touch education, you can touch hotels, you can touch all the sectors of the economy, and it's the only industry that can really give you that kind of value. So it's a sector that must not be underestimated, because according to UNWTO standards, every tourist creates about 10 jobs. But beyond that, if you are looking at an economy that is not depleting resources, that is not basically wasting resources, you obviously will be talking of tourism. So it's an intangible sector, but it touches on so many lives and it touches on so many other sectors in the economy. So it's a very important sector, and I think it makes great contribution to every economy across the continent and the rest of the world.
And having said that, Mr. Donkor, I mean, the continent has been the second fastest growing tourism region with about 5.6% in 2018. So would you say that this has been leisure-driven or business-driven?
I would say both, but my personal belief is that business tourism will drive leisure. In South Africa, we got something that we call bleisure, basically looking at the business guys and coming and running their conference like what we are doing and taking time off their busy schedule and exploring the country. So I personally believe that there is a lot more value that business tourism, or what we might call the MICE sector, meetings, incentive conference and events will generate, because the average spend of a conference attendee is much higher than that of a leisure traveler, for the simple reason: one, the company is paying for him or her; two, because the person is being sponsored or being catered for by the company, they are always ensuring that the person gets the best out of it. And when they come, there is also opportunity for them to spend a lot more and possibly come back and also reinvest in the country. It also contributes to the knowledge economy of each and every sector of the country. So I would say that both will drive the growth, but if you want to look at the multiplier effects of the business sector, it's much higher than what the leisure traveler or could possibly contribute to the economy.
And according to the World Travel and Tourism Council, domestic tourism contributed about 56% to Africa's, Africa's tourism sector, while international tourism contributed about 44%. So for this sector to be hailed as a success, would you say that, international or domestic tourism is the major driver of economic growth?
The domestic tourism is extremely critical. And that is one of the reasons why we are looking at the conference. And we have this particular conference. The theme for the conference is stimulating intra-Africa travel through thought leadership. And the idea is to basically get our leaders, both private and public sector, to put their heads together and jointly collaborate on ways and means to ensure we strengthen all the factors that help to drive growth in domestic and what I would call the intra-African travel. The reason is that there is proximity in travel. People want to experience their own backyard. As we always say, charity begins at home. And it's very important that we travel across the continent, understand the continents, and be able to share what the continents, the information about what the continents has with the rest of the world. We are the same very people who are going to change the narratives about the continent. So if we don't travel and explore our own backyard, it's very difficult for us to change the narratives. So for the simple reason that we would like to grow the continent arrivals, we have to travel. And the fact that people can travel at short distances within short space of time, it helps to grow quicker than getting international. International arrivals or international tourists plan a minimum of about 3 months before they travel. But if you look at domestic travel, you may decide over a long weekend or a holiday that you want to travel outside your locality, and that gives opportunity for us to grow. South Africa short-lived does a lot of wonders. A lot of countries, people go over weekends for funerals, for weddings, for other celebrations, and they all contribute to domestic tourism. And we believe that that is a sector that we need to drive, and that is why we are pushing for intra-Africa travel.
You know, Mr. Donkor, the performance of hotels in North Africa have improved quite markedly as they recover from security incidents such as terrorist attacks against tourists, while hotels in Southern Africa continue to suffer as a result of factors impacting on their sources such as Brexit, such as the ailing economy in Germany. So any plans to circumvent around this or maybe work out a plan that would serve as a cushion or some sort of a shock absorber against a continuation of these incidents?
Right. The North African case is a different case. Don't forget the proximity of North Africa to Europe. So that makes it very easily accessible to the Europeans. Southern Africa or from North of Sub-Saharan Africa, you are very right. When the economy suffers, we suffer because the middle class are the people who drive the industry. And basically, when the economy is struggling, it makes it very difficult for them to travel. And that is the reason why we are looking at issues. What can we issues impacting on travel of domestic residents? And the idea is to make sure that we don't always focus on the big hotels. If you look around Africa, we got a lot of bed and breakfast, we got a lot of guest houses, we got a lot of game lodges, and all these help to drive tourism arrivals. So there is no need for us to be purely focusing on the 5-star and the 4-star hotels. We need those, and they are very critical to grow the industry. But when the economy is not doing well and people cannot afford, those are going to suffer, but the B&Bs and the smaller hotels could benefit. In that case, what we need to do is to help drive the business tourism that you spoke about. Because when it comes to business tourism, whether the economy is struggling or not, it's an issue, but not that much of an issue, because if a meeting needs to happen and one has to travel into a particular country, they have to travel. For the simple reason, face-to-face meetings regarding big decisions are still critical. It doesn't matter whether the economy is doing well or not. So it depends on how we segment our market, how our strategies are developed, and how basically we go around driving arrivals to overcome issues of seasonality, issues of economics in countries like South Africa where we've been struggling with economic growth. I believe that when it comes, that is where innovations become critical. How do we put innovative strategies in place to overcome some of these challenges. And one of the best one is to start looking at business travel. And as you look at business travel, there are 4 components of it. Each of the sectors can contribute to basically help out to absorb the shock that we experience from the slow growth in the economy.
I mean, as you've just said, I mean, we need to put in strategies on the table to ensure that we spur economic growth. And in as much as we've seen massive growth in the tourism sector, but the growth has been quite sluggish. And one wonders why, because South Africa has got a massive tourism potential with regards to the beautiful flora and fauna and the picturesque topography, the wildlife, the cultural heritage in the different African countries. But growth remains slow. So what is it that the government should focus on to ensure that growth is spurred and, hastened?
One critical thing, and I think South Africa government of late has been very progressive and proactive about that, is visa openness, the level of visa openness. How long does it take people visa to travel into the country? What is the cost of visa versus the cost of the person travel into the country? So for Africa to really develop, and those are some of the things that we're advocating for, we got to look into the issue of visa policies. How flexible are they? How long does it take for people to get their visa? Not only South Africa, but across the continent to be able to travel. We got to look at the air access. What is the cost? South Africa, for instance, at the moment has the low-cost airlines are doing fantastically well. To travel to them costs you less than $100 return. And that is the kind of message that we have to look into. If visa becomes easy for people to travel, you obviously are going to attract a lot of neighbors coming into a particular country. Well, we don't say security should be compromised, but the fact is we've got to look at encouraging people to come without making it very difficult. And when those issues are overcome, I'm very sure that the growth will come. We always compare security issues and visa and people coming to the country, possibly not going back, becoming illegal immigrants and stuff. But it all depends on the policies and the screening level at the point of entry. Security is something that is a world over. It's becoming an issue for everybody. So making visa very difficult for people to enter a country will not necessarily overcome the security issues. So we believe that if we all agree and looking at visa like is being considered in trade, free trade areas and stuff like that, we believe that we'll be able to grow the numbers into not only South Africa but the rest of the countries in Africa. I mean,
Mr. Donkor, we hope that all great minds will come together tomorrow and significant policies and strategies will come out of it. And all the best in tomorrow's event. We appreciate your time. That was the CEO of Africa Tourism Partners, Kwakye Donkor, joining us live from our Durban